Good evening. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Welcome back. My name again is Jay Rothman. I am the host of Real Men Real Talk Live. I'd like to introduce my co-host this evening, coming in from back home, out of the bubble, somewhere in the U.S., Josh Ritcher, coming in from Santa Monica, California. Welcome to the show, Josh Ritcher.
I'm so excited to be here, you guys.
Yeah, nice to have you back, brother. Nice to have you back.
Yeah, we missed you, Josh, last week. You know, it's just not the same. It's different having us cubed up as a foursome. Very different when you're not here. You are well missed. And
of course.
There's like a hole in the screen, Josh. Like I look and there's a little rectangle that's not there. We should put Josh's name there.
My second co-host coming in from Australia, known as the man of the land from down under, Evis Love Heath. Welcome to the show, Evis.
Thank you, my brother. Always a pleasure to be on with my brothers at Real Men Real Talk Live. Looking forward to diving deep tonight.
Diving deep, baby. Diving deep.
We've got Humble coming in from Tampa, Florida, a.k.a. Charles Maddox, the celebrity chef, filmmaker, executive producer of Real Men Real Talk Live and other projects. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys.
And, of course, we have Mr. Jeff Fasano coming in from Nashville, Tennessee. Jeff did an amazing pre-show, prepping, kind of getting himself in the flow, in the zone. Tonight's topic is a hot one. Last week, we're rebounding. Off of last week, we dug deep into fathers and our relationships and how our fathers impacted our lives and influenced our adult lives and adulthood. What I'd like to do before we get into tonight's topic, I'd like to thank those that are in our viewers, our listeners that join us tonight. If you should hear something that resonates with you, that you like or love with love, gently tap the love or like button. Let's light the studio up tonight. Also, if you have any questions as we kind of go through this topic and hit some hot points, please post your comments in the comment section. And your questions, that is, and we'll do our best to tackle them all. And so without further ado, tonight's topic is, in fact, on moms and how our moms have influenced our life and what are the takeaways from our relationship with the first woman that we all had in our life, which was the relationship with a mom, and how that relationship kind of has influenced all of our relationships ever since. And so without further ado, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to ask Evis Love to kind of warm us up, turn on the heat, and let's get this party started.
Thank you, my brother, Jay Roth, the man. And as my brothers always on a Real Men Real Talk Live, thanks for having me again here in the land down under. And all of our brothers and sisters on the other side of the pond, as always, without you guys, this couldn't work. So thank you for your undivided attention, your energy, and your continuous support throughout the show. Look, we're diving in deep again tonight, and it's coming on the back end of last week. And we thought it'd just make balance and make sense to come in and talk about this mother-son energy and how that could be turning up in our lives personally here on a Real Men Real Talk Live. But to, be able to be in a position where we can actually talk for men in general out there that particularly I see is playing a big role in many of the men that I help on their transformational journeys with this mother-son relationship. Now, I opened up last week and I talked a little bit about not so much being about the father-son energy, but the masculine wounding. I did a couple of shows on my personal profile this week, and I talked a little bit about that feminine wounding and how that could have been playing a role in my life. Man, I opened up. I showed my vulnerability, and I talked a little bit about probably some of my abandonment issues that I had from mum. When dad wasn't around in those ages, through around that sort of 5 to sort of 13 years old, mum had to take on that masculine role. She thought she had to go out there into the world and make a better life for me and my brother. But at that stage in my life, it was just her presence. It was just her beingness that I was yearning for as a young man. Now, when I couldn't have that presence of her, when she had to go away also, and I'm putting out a lot of respect, not to my, not only my mum, but also for the caretakers that looked after my brother and I at the time, but it just wasn't the same as that mother nurturing energy. Now, that sort of started to play out probably later on in my life, and I only really became aware of it for these beautiful things that we call relationships, because I started to become a bit codependent on that other person or that other partner within my life to fall back on some of those emotions, feelings that I may not have got when I was that child or son at those tender ages that I was talking about from my childhood. So one thing that I see with the mother wounding, the mother-son relationship, is that essence of not being able to express healthy emotional intelligence within our lives. And for many, many men out there in the collective right now, unfortunately, we don't put up some of those healthy, safe boundaries, and we start to express it in self-sabotaging and sabotaging ways, not only within ourselves, but other people around us. And what that ends up in can be very chaotic. So for me, with the mother-son energy, it's really having that love, that unconditional space of guidance to hold the safe space that I could really freely express myself as a human being and as a man down here on planet Earth. So I look forward to diving in deep with my brothers tonight, and this is going to be a big show.
Oh, powerful.
Woof.
Okay.
Yeah.
Way to start it out, Ev.
Really,
Okay.
that's a lot of ground to cover right there.
Did all that in one.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment, honestly, to just acknowledge you, because up until this week, when I heard one of your lives as you were in the bush, as you refer to it, the outback bush, you acknowledged something that you just shared again tonight, which is that at your young teenage years, early teenage years, your mom left your family. And for you, as a child, it felt like abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
And you had not shared that before. I hadn't known that. And it really hit me, it really struck me. And I honor you for having the courage. That's why we do this show. This show is for men to really understand that we can show up, speak our truth, share our true stories.
Yeah.
I know that it doesn't have to define who we are today, but it is part of our past, and we can change our relationship with the memory of the past.
Mm-hmm.
So as an adult, you don't have to live in those same feelings or fear of being abandoned. We'll get into that. That's a whole other topic within.
Mm.
I know we'll get there tonight, but I did want to at least acknowledge and thank you for showing that vulnerability and knowing that, your mom's still alive, and knowing that there's a good chance she either may be watching live or may pick up the show on replay. And, it takes courage for all 5 of us that have a mom alive today to be able to share some of our truths, even if it may be not what our moms want to hear. And so with that, what I'd like to do is humble. What did you make of what Evis had to say? And for you, what role did your mom play in your younger years? and how has your life been influenced and impacted by your mom?
Yeah, I mean, no, Evis is always right on point. You know, and I know I've said some things, you know, as about her throughout these shows, and you know, I kind of think that it at times when I speak on my mom, I think she did the best that she could, and I think a lot of moms and fathers out here did the best that they knew how to do. You know, coming from a Caribbean, Jamaican island, and growing up a certain way, and trying to, you know, basically left Jamaica to come here to give me a good life and create a life for me and my brother. And then, you know, working her way up to, you know, what she was as far as her career. And, you know, my mom used to have to literally walk from, we lived in Long Island. She used to walk as a single mom about 25 minutes to the N6, which was a bus line in Long Island. Then from there, take the bus all the way to the last stop, which was probably a good 35 minutes. Then from there, 179th Street in Jamaica, take that all the way to the last stop, which was the financial district out in Manhattan. So, you know, this is about a 2.5 hour trip that she had to do every day. So, and she did it at the end of the day because she wanted to give me, you know, a good life. Now, she wasn't home a lot, obviously, because she left early. From a young age, I had to pretty much take care of myself, you know, and just hang out with the fellas and come home and just, you know, do my homework and stuff. So, but I think she did the best she could. And I think that, you know, she looked at it probably as, you know what, I'm going to give him the best life that I think he could, as far as emotional or mental or preparing me for certain things. That probably wasn't there because, you know, I mean, you know, she wasn't, you know, sometimes women wear both sides of the coin, but she really wasn't, you know, she didn't teach me how to be a man. Obviously, you know, that's why I probably have some things that I have to deal with or have dealt with or dealing with, because I learned, you know, some things from the streets. But, you know, she was very religious, which, you know, was a good thing. It taught me some structure and gave me some morals and things like that. But it was too over zealous, right? And kind of pushed me away at times for certain things. So, you know, it's been an up and down relationship over the last couple of years. But I know she has a good heart. So we'll start with that and let everybody else jump in, and you know, obviously I'll expand upon it as we go, but I think she did the best she could.
You know, it takes some maturity, Charles, for us as men and women to acknowledge that and accept that as the truth.
Yeah.
Because so many of us, including myself, for so many of my adult years, held by mom and dad accountable in not a good way, not a healthy way, but, you know, with a lot of anger and resentment for the things that I blamed them for in my younger years. And I held on to it as a married man. And it affected my relationships at home. Obviously, it affected my relationship with my mom and dad. And most importantly, it affected the relationship with myself. Because even in those times when I detached, just because I was physically detached didn't mean that I was emotionally detached. It was still there. The hurt and the wounding and the pain was still there. And so, you know, it took a lot of work for me to reach that point where I was in acceptance, as we shared just now, that your mom did the best she could. And that is the truth for all moms and dads. There's a lot of people that will push back and say, well, that wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Well, unfortunately, when we understand that, our parents only knew what they knew. And you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
And as a parent, when you're raising children, you're bringing along all of the belief systems that you were taught. And if there was dysfunction within your home growing up as a child, you're just repeating the same cycles. And so, yeah, I agree. You know, our parents did the best they could. But what this is about is less about that and more about how have we as men been able to take the good and the bad and not let it impact in a toxic, negative way, but be able to live in acceptance and understand the impact that our relationship with the first woman in our life had on us, and how can we turn it today so that our relationships moving forward are different perhaps than the relationships we've had with women in our life. And so with that, I'm going to invite Josh Ritcher to heat us up, coming back into the bubble. You're home for about a week or two before you have to slide back into that work bubble. But for now, welcome home. Welcome back to Real Men, Real Talk Live, because this is where your home is today.
It is home. And gosh, just being around you guys, these amazing souls, it feels like home. And so I very much am home. And that's a very honest and truthful statement. So I love you all. And I love everybody that's watching and comments. And, you know, this show is so special to me and all of us, I think. We know that we're doing something special for humanity and for ourselves. And it is a healing place, as we've all, you know, had our moments where we've broken down. And so I'm just supremely grateful to be here tonight and just listening to all your comments and thinking, you know, Charles, my mom was the same. She had she actually had a car accident around 15, and it left her with a closed head injury, which is the brain sort of bounces around in the skull and bruises the brain, and it diminishes cognitive function massively. And so my poor mom, bless her heart, could only make it through a work day and like come home just emotionally exhausted and not even be able to deal with my sister and I. And so I felt like I had to step into that mom role for my 5-year younger sister. And so I was driving out, I had the license, and I was driving out and picking us up meals, and I was doing all these things. And you know, to no fault of my mom, she has the sweetest heart. And I know that, you know, I got my heart and my caring nature towards humanity and others from my mom. And my dad too. My dad was a loving, caring person. I think he just didn't know how to show it as much as mom did. But I had to jump into that motherly role, and my folks split when I was, you know, 14. And my dad worked a lot, so I didn't really have that fatherly figure. So all I really knew was like the motherly energy. And I felt like I had to be that for my sister, and that I had to be the help and emotional support that she needed, that I was lacking, that I was feeling I was lacking when my mom just didn't even have the cognitive ability to give that. She was just, I mean, to just provide for us financially was the max that she could do in a day, and would come home and sleep. And so I don't know what that's done to me. I felt like I might have gotten robbed of a little bit of my teenage years and having to grow up quickly. And it's made me a very motherly person at work. I mean, I have teams of people that work underneath me for most of the 20 years I've been in TV. And I consider myself a mom. I make sure that they're fed and they're, you know, they have water and all the basic human needs. And so I feel like I carry that sort of motherly nature, and that's me and my feminine side. But I don't know what, it's an interesting that you bring up, what has that done to me in my relationships with women that I've dated or things like that. And I think because I had to be like maybe strong for myself and strong for my sister, I feel like I sort of maybe put on that strength, and I don't share that a lot with people. And the people that are close to you want to feel that. That's what helps them feel close. And I feel like I struggle with that a little bit. And then I put on the strong face, and I'm out in the world able to tackle everything and do okay as a guy. And, you know, I think guys have a lot of that energy anyway. And so I don't know. It has probably hurt in some way some of my relationships with girlfriends, and sort of sharing that. Sharing struggles with them. I don't know. I'm just hey, this is live, right? We're exploring it now.
Yeah, 4 channels. Yeah.
It's coming out now, so who knows?
You know, Josh, I love what you shared, and I didn't know that. You know, I had you on as interviewed you a number of times before we relaunched the show, and I didn't know that part of your story as well. And it's just amazing how the more time we spend together, the more we're willing to open up and share with courage. Because again, Josh, I know your mom is a fan of the show, as is mine, and she watches. And it's, you know, we want to, out of love and respect for our moms, we want to be able to honor them in this moment. But at the same time, our relationship, how we showed up, has impacted our lives. And it is our reality. It is our story. And, you know, I will say this to you, Josh. I really related to what you just shared, because so much of what you experienced was partially mine as well, feeling that responsibility. And I tell you what I learned, it took a long time, but what has come for me forward now is that ultimately, when I let go of the need to feel like I've got to parent and take care of the people I love and give them the dignity that they deserve to learn how to take care of themselves, I lost a lot of weight. I lost a lot of that inner burden of having that responsibility. And what it did was it freed them up to become their best version of themselves that they're capable of. But what it did for me was it gave me freedom, because then I didn't have to focus so much on how everyone else is showing up. And I just got to focus on me. And I tell you what, it feels really good to not have that feeling of responsibility. And so I get it. And I understand you big time. And so I invite you, Josh, to just focus on understanding that I didn't know this, is that the more I tried to help other people in my family, I was literally stripping them of their own dignity to learn how to take care of themselves. And that was powerful when I heard that the first time in the 12-step rooms about 4 or 5 years ago. And so thank you for sharing that part of yourself. I don't know how, I know Evis is shaking his head. Yeah. Jeff Fasano, I'm going to invite you to piggyback off of Josh, because he really dug in a little bit into this feminine and masculine parts of ourself. And I know this is a part for you that you're really passionate about. So show us what's on your mind this evening.
Oh, wow. Actually, something you just said, Jay, is responsibility. At a very young age, and what my programming was, is that there's a part of me that felt so deeply responsible for my mother's life. And the only way in which I knew how to relate to my mother and thus relate to women is about taking care of them. I was here strictly to take care of my mother. I was here strictly to take care of any woman that I would date. And that greatly affected my relationships with women. It's really funny. As we came on, I thought about it. My mother passed a bunch of years ago. She's not alive anymore, but there's aspects of my mom that are still very alive in me, and I've been working on them diligently to really let go of that old programming. My parents got married and tried to have kids for 10 years. And the doctors one day said to my mother, there's no way in the world biologically that you can have kids. My mother was a control freak. My mother was a perfectness person where everything was in place. You could eat off the floor. It was amazing. So my mother had a lot of control stuff. And when the doctors told her that, my parents went about starting to try to adopt a child. They loved kids. And in that time period, all of a sudden, after 10 years, she finds out she's pregnant with me. So I can imagine what that does to a woman who wants to have kids, who loves kids, what that might do and what that does to their worth or their self-worth. And then I come along, and what I've realized through therapy and really working on this was how, when I came along, I validated my mother as to who she is. And she treated me like that. She made it so much about her. And thus that was transferred to me to look at my mother as someone that I needed to take care of because I validated her. And the things that I remember when I was a kid about my mother dressing me up and showing me off as this trophy of here's my son, here's the trophy. And really what she was doing was saying, here's what validates me. And in so many ways, my mother loved me deeply because I've learned to let go a lot of that. But I became like her little trophy and less of who I was. So it was transferred to me was, oh, wow, the only way mom is going to feel happy and loved is if I take care of her. I have to take care of her. So this burden of responsibility came upon me that has been there for years and years and years. And through working through it to individuate from that, so I can actually have a healthy relationship with a woman outside of this wounded child thinking that the only way you're going to love me, mom, is if I take care of you.
So you got stuck in that cycle of connecting your value and your worth.
Exactly. My value and worth to a woman is how I can take care of their needs, how I can take care of you. And then when I do that, that's the only way you're going to love me. So I worked that and worked that and worked that until I started to realize through healthy friendships with women that I'm loved for being who I am. And that has been my experience in life, and that has been my challenge in life, is to really come to the place that I am loved by another woman for who I am, not what I can give to them or take care of them or take care of their needs. I used to totally give myself up to a woman and forget all about me. And I never really knew that I was doing that. And that is exactly what I did with my mother. And this, like I said, my mother has passed on, but there's still parts of her that are alive and well in this physical body.
What I'd like to do is well, first, Jeff, I want to take a moment just to acknowledge again you showing up tonight and speaking your truth and understanding, having the awareness of what it was like as a child and the responsibility that you took on. And I do want to say this, is that for the moms that still are alive in our lives, it wasn't that we were assigned these roles as young boys. It's just the way things evolve. It's just the role that we take on. Each sibling in a home takes on a specific role. Now, what I don't know, maybe Ev, maybe you could put some clarity on this. Why do you think a number of us men in this room took on that role? Does it have something to do with the balance or imbalance between the feminine and masculine within us as children that caused us to gravitate? Was it that we had dads that were maybe similar, where our moms were stronger voiced, more pronounced in a home, and our dads were busy working, chasing the dream, making money? Mom was more relevant in our lives. What do you think was a common denominator from what you heard from all of us just sharing our own childhood experience?
Jay, all of those things, brother. You know, and this is what makes it so beautiful, that all of our stories here tonight, just that little bit of extra spice because of the variety, but all link intertwine into this beautiful feminine, masculine energy. And you hit it on the head, Jay. There is that little imbalance of that feminine, masculine energy. And you think our parents going back a couple of generations, what we've got to understand as well, that you got to look at the way they were brought up as well. Were they in a family that their father, their mother was giving them their self-worth, grooming them to be their very best, building up their self-confidence and self-esteem? And is that why that we take on the role with that masculine energy? And what you're saying there, Jeff, that's beautiful, feminine energy, that you took that responsibility to show that nurturing care and build that self-value into her, but also take that leading role as the masculine energy. And we take on these roles typically because it's really the masculine energy, you know, and if there is that little bit of an imbalance, like I mentioned, then it's just natural that we as men, we feel the need to go into that particular role. But I see it all the time. And like I said, through my personal story, where it sort of came from also is that my mum never got that nurturing from her parents. You know, so it was repeated through cycles and patterns in time. So it's really becoming aware of some of these patterns, habits, and behaviors, and bringing that balance of that divine feminine masculine energy to the surface, that we're able to easily or better off navigate our way through some of these things that we're going through, particularly at this time as men.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
My question is, how do we identify some of this stuff a whole lot sooner? You know, I mean, why does it take, 30, 40 years to identify this, and then we have to try to, look back now and try to get it together and fix it up,
Great question.
I think, I have a friend who always asks that question as to, why do we have to learn this way? Yeah. And why does it take so long, or maybe not so long for some people, to learn this way? And I think it's first looking at our divine plan, our soul plan. When we're ready, we're ready. If we're ready. If we're ready, we'll be ready. As Jay said before we came in, you know when you know when you know. And then when we're ready and we really want to look at it, or if as we move into being an adult and we start having relationships with women and the same thing keeps happening, same pattern, same thing keeps happening. Now, I'm sure all of us have blamed that woman for the relationship not working. Thus, our wounded boy is saying, I'm blaming mom, and that's why it's not going to work. So we could look at that and look at why it's not working, maybe somewhere along the way, move into a consciousness that, oh, something's not working. I would tend to surmise that most guys hesitate to want to look at themselves as, this is why this isn't working. It's not a blame game. It's about, maybe I can look at a mirror, which is what we're here to ask men to do, is if it's not working, if you can you're repeating those behaviors and patterns, and this is happening in your relationships. The same thing's happening again. You see the same things happening again. Can you look at yourself? So I think it all comes to a place of for a guy to move into maybe a more compassionate place and say, wow, I think it's important for me to look at myself now, because like my mentor and teacher in New York once said, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when you might want to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, I love that, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say to your question, Charles, is when you finally get sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when you're like, all right, something's got to change. And just like Jeff said, when we blame the world, and then finally you might look in that mirror and say, oh shit, this might be me. And that's a hard realization to do. And I honor anyone who's taken that deep, hard look in the mirror and said, oh shit, what's my role in this? But that's your path to freedom.
Yep.
And that's where the magic lies, because we can alter this, we can stop this, and we can live lives, like you were saying, Jay, free. We can be free.
I know Khadijah mentioned, because we don't sit around with our elders anymore. I know, and I was just thinking about that and thought, back we had that one thing where we said it took a village, and and if you think about that comment too as well, is it always just the mother or the father? There were uncles around and brothers and maybe church people if you went somewhere where you can kind of just get a little bit more guidance. Because once again, as me growing up with a single mom, I had no one else to there was no village. It was, the friends on the block. Obviously we've gotten away from that ideology, and now it's just in a sense, every man for himself. I don't know.
Hey, Josh, I'm gonna turn the table, because you're so good at asking questions. I'm gonna ask you a question. Being that you've acknowledged that you were raised by your mom, and so she obviously had the greatest influence in your life. How do you think that has benefited you in your adult life?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I am empathetic and caring and very considerate, and I was taught to be that way. And all of Mom's family, the Oaken sides, not the Ritcher side, but all of Mom's family will give the shirt off their back. And they're all very caring, loving people to a fault, Jeff. Much like you were talking about, where they put themselves, everybody else first and themselves last. And I think it's a trait of the Oaken family that got passed down through Mom. And Grandma was tough. Grandma had 10 kids and lived on a farm with an alcoholic husband. And Grandma had to rule the roost with an iron fist. Otherwise, the whole house was just a muck, Yeah. So I honor the way that my mom turned out and what she had to go through. And, it's like you were saying, too, in the beginning, Jay, we can't blame anyone for this. It's the roles that we took on, And so, but Mom's been very nurturing and loving, and all of the Okens are. And that lives and breathes in me, my genes.
Charles.
Yes, brother.
Same question. Your mom did, in fact, raise you by herself. Herself, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
How did your mom's relationship with you, being the sole caretaker of you primarily, how has it impacted? How do you think it's impacted how you show up today in your relationships?
I literally been going through this over the last couple of weeks, and it's been telling. And it's interesting, she was very, and I think I mentioned that she was very private. I wouldn't say secretive, but just very private. So I kind of took on that role in, even when I meet, and because, I came up in music and TV and stuff like that, and just realizing that, you don't always allow people in your circle right away, that it takes time to get to know people. And that's what I kind of took from, that's what I made up in my head, from her being private. I kind of translated, and I didn't even understand any of this until recently. I kind of translated that as, I saw what she was, this private, almost secretive person who kept to herself and didn't have, many friends and stuff. And I think I used that to say, don't open the door. Don't even tell people. I remember my first girlfriend. Literally, I found a beautiful girl. I made up a name when I met her called Toby. And literally for, I don't know how long I was with her, let's say a year and a half, 2 years, the whole family called me Toby all the time. And
We're going to start calling you Toby.
Stick.
It sounds crazy. But I don't know why. And once again, it was because I didn't want to let her right in. I didn't want to expose myself. I didn't want to be vulnerable. So I made up this name, and literally they ran with this thing. And, I think even when they did know the name, my real name, they were still stuck on Toby. So I think, it has definitely opened my eyes recently to just honesty and showing up honest and allowing myself to be vulnerable, allowing myself to be exposed, allowing myself to be to tell the truth and not have to, be so private and be so secretive and make up something just to avoid that person coming into my circle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
That makes, sorry, Jay.
No worries.
Wow. Just like last week, Charles, you just hit me. You hit me. Wow. You hit me in a place right now that by just saying that, I'm learning how to drop my mask, that rigid mask, and show up as me, and to be loved as me, and let down that guard and honor that and value that in me, and thank you, man. You just hit a spot in me that I'm frightened of. There's a part of me that's still a little frightened of fully showing up as me, because what still lingers is I can't take care of you. The 5-year-old can't take care of mom, never could. And I'm not here. So thank you for you just opened up that part of me that I'm starting to really, really cherish inside of me, that, and a tool that I look at is my female friends who I have, who I'm very close to, and they just love me for who I am. But thank you for that. You just hit something that just got me so emotional.
Jump in just for a second, and you guys could run with it. And even in that learning process, while we're sharing and interchanging right now, and nobody held over my head, hey, Charles, man, you said your name was Toby. You can't be forgiven for that. Or man, there's even times, like I said, because of me growing up in film and television and then using that thing from my mother, man, if I met a woman literally, I didn't tell them my real age. Sometimes I didn't tell them my real, just because when I was on the road making music, man, I remember thinking, man, if I meet a girl on the road, me and my boys, we have to have some kind of paper for them to sign. Cause if you don't want to, mess with a girl, man, the next thing you know, she's saying some crazy stuff. So I kept that going even years later, because I just didn't want to let them in. But the thing that I have seen is that that's nothing to beat somebody up over. That when we were talking the other day and you guys said, hey, Charles, why did you share what I shared or whatever like that? You don't ever want to get beat up for your honesty, right? Because we know that at times it's not per se the person. It might be the person does or has done some things that need to be adjusted. But we don't beat up someone who is trying to share their honesty. So that's why I love sharing with you guys here and even our audience, because I think it's a mature audience and a mature conversation we're having, where we could look at ourselves and say, you know what, man, we're learning from that. We grew from that. Were we wrong in that situation? Are those some things that we took from other places that we don't even realize that are 4, 5, 6 layers deep? And now we're trying to address these things. So I thank you guys for allowing me to get this deep, because trust me, I would have probably been going had not for this show and sharing this reality, this truth. So
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I ditto that.
Ev, what do you make of all this?
I love you for you.
Yeah.
This is just pure bliss, brothers. You're feeling the love here in the land down under. You're on the other side of the pond, but wow, man. And it's just this magic mirror that we have called life, that we can bounce these reflections off each other, not only on a screen, but through our words and expression, through our heart as men, which we haven't done on this planet for so long. And that is the key. We're coming slowly down to this heart opening, this heart space, and being able to balance these energies and be able to show this beautiful, real strength on the planet. And that's called vulnerability. So I love it, Jay. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Man. I think it's a guy thing it's such a male thing to put on this mask of I am really friggin' strong here. Meanwhile, underneath there's this little boy crying out to just want to be feel vulnerable and be there and be loved for that. And there's a part of every guy, I would imagine, and a part of me, that if we are feeling vulnerable and we open our hearts, we're seen as weak.
Yep. I was just gonna
and thus we maybe define the feminine energy is as if I embody the feminine energy within me, am I going to be perceived as weak? And I think that has a lot to do with it. I know for me it has.
I think there's another component to it, Jeff. That's huge. That's a huge piece of it. But I think there's another piece, which is that we fear if we open up, we may just get hurt one more time. And as men, we've learned how to bury our feelings and our emotions to protect ourselves from feeling the hurt and the pain from the wounds that we didn't heal, because no one ever took our hand and guided us. Look, I didn't have a mentor my entire life. I did not have in my adult life a healthy, positive male mentor in my life. And it's no wonder that I stumbled and fell. And and just was surviving, chasing that American dream that turned into a nightmare. And so, yeah, there's two pieces to it. I think absolutely, Jeff, it's that component, but there's also inside, maybe unconsciously, our biggest fear is getting hurt. I'll tell you one of the greatest lessons I learned real quickly here of how I was showing up in my behavior towards men, or primarily women in my life. For many years, my ex-wife of 30 years. And what it came down to for me when I didn't understand this is when I thought that I was doing all the things right, trying to help, trying to bring her the solutions and make her feel better and all that stuff, and help her navigate through her inner, I guess, pain. What I didn't understand was that I really was frustrated so much of the time because I felt like, why can't she get it? Which is a very common end result for those men that show up that way in relationships, as well as women. But one of the greatest lessons I learned along the way was I had to get out of her way. And on top of that, I thought I was being almighty in that regard. When I say almighty, I mean like, I thought I was doing it to help her. And that really wasn't the whole truth. So here is the truth. I was doing it because I wanted to feel better. It never was about her. It always was about my needs not being met. And if I could fix her, then I'll feel better about myself because then maybe she'll be available for me. And here's the truth is that it couldn't ever work that way. It was a broken model. It was a broken model because ultimately I was as unhealthy as she was. It never was about her. It was always about me. I just didn't know that. I didn't know that I needed to shift the focus back onto my own inner wounds, pivotal moments and experiences from my own childhood that needed to be healed. And when I finally get out of everyone's way and let them do their thing, and I put the focus back on me, my life changed exponentially. And today, it's a choice. It's kind of like the two-step, when you get out of other people's way, that's where freedom is. And so it's important that we understand that we really look at why we say and do the things we do. Are we really doing it because we care about them? Or is it more about us feeling like we're not getting our needs met? And if we show up for them, then they're going to be there for us.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Jillian says that ego would never be satisfied, Jay. Yeah. That's exactly what it was about. I want to take a moment here. Again, I want to thank the viewers that are lighting up the comments tonight and with us all the way. I know that there are a number of names that I haven't seen before, and I want to just take a moment to thank you for having the courage to share and be part of this conversation. Victor, Dubé, perhaps, Alexandra, Christine. I'm not sure if I've seen you on a posting before. We've got Jamie Rodriguez, who I met for the first time. I watched the interview. I reposted the interview that Jamie did. Jamie is in the music industry, and he interviewed Jeff Fasano. I believe it was Tuesday of this week. And I really enjoyed the interview, Jamie. And Jamie says, is it too soon to start talking about Real Men, Real Talk Live, the seminar, in person, post-pandemic? Sign us up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for for showing up tonight and participating. I also want to do a quick shout out to Paul and Cameron and Sydney, who I met halfway into a 6.4-mile hike just yesterday. By the time I got up the trail, it was 103 degrees Fahrenheit. But I had the pleasure of meeting these three young people, young adults, 20, 26, and maybe 23 or 24. And we just held some incredible conversations, much like what we're doing here tonight. And, it's just, for me, that is where hope and inspiration is the younger generation, that they were interested to have that conversation like what we're doing tonight. It shows me that there is hope for the youngest of generations that are coming up. So Josh,
and you don't have to crash and burn like we did. you don't have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you don't have to end up in rehab or whatever. Life can be much easier. Open your mind.
Come and talk to us. That's why we're doing this show, man. Come and talk to us.
This show's about hope.
With what time would you have left? Because we are coming up on the hour. Believe it or not, this night has gone fast.
Yeah, it has, man.
I'd like to switch gears because this is a spot here where so many men and women struggle. You mentioned it in your opening segment, Ev, which was about abandonment. And I would like to invite each of you to share from your perspective, what can we do as men and as adults to break the chain to those emotions and cellular memory of our relationship to those feelings of abandonment that we had perhaps when we were children, if we felt like we had a mom or a dad, even a sibling, a friend that abandoned us. What is your take on that, Josh, on the subject of abandonment as it relates to our parents, our mother in specific, as we have deep dived into our relationship with our moms in this show tonight?
And
before you go there, if I may interrupt you for a moment, let's also put out perhaps a tip, a suggestion for the viewers and listeners. How can we break the chain to our relationship with those feelings and emotions from our past abandonment issues that we've had?
What I would say, and I am no different. We are all human, and we all deal with it. Very similar things is where do you feel abandoned in your childhood, and how can you give that to yourself? I'm going to keep it real short.
Beautiful. You nailed it.
That's a hard one.
You nailed it. Jeff Fasano, you got 2 minutes. I may give you 2.5.
Can I take Josh's minute and 30 and add it to my 2 minutes?
I don't know. I may want to give that to Humble tonight.
There you go. I'm going to add to abandonment, betrayal. Abandonment and betrayal go together. What happened for me was because, as I said earlier, I validated my mother. My mother would get her needs met through me, of her validation of who she is and all that good stuff. Once my mother had her needs met, she would run off to my father or whatever, and I'd be left hanging. And I can literally feel that, as Jay just said, in my cellular memory. Whoa, what about me? What about me? What about me? The 5-year-old is screaming because it was all about my mother. And of course, she wasn't purposefully doing that, consciously doing that. It was just what she was doing and where she was coming from. But it fostered being abandoned. And then when she would go pay attention to my father, that's where the betrayal came in. The betrayal. Mom, you're supposed to take care of my needs. I'm 5 years old. What about my needs? Nurture me. My mother never nurtured or knew how to nurture me. So what I've had to learn through all of this is to learn to really go into my feelings of abandonment, the feelings of betrayal. And what I've had to learn on my own through therapy is because I was never taught how to nurture that little boy, that 5-year-old who's feeling abandoned, who's feeling betrayed, and start to go in there and learn how to nurture myself. Somebody once said that to me a long time ago. Well, Jeff, now it's time to nurture you. And they could have been speaking a foreign language, and I had no idea what they meant about nurturing me because I was never taught that by mom. So I'm just learning. So a tool that I have learned is to just step back when those feelings, the intensity of those feelings come up, and they do, is to go into that wounded little boy and ask them what they need. If you can visualize it, find that little boy, say, what do you need right now? What do you need right now? And start to nurture that in yourself, start to foster that so you're simply allowed to feel abandoned and betrayed. Allow yourself to feel those and express those. And that's what I've learned to do for myself along the way.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love that. Jeff Fasano, bringing it home one more time from Nashville, Tennessee. Evis Love, Heath, you're up. You got 2 minutes to kind of shuffle the deck here on abandonment and tell us, give us a nugget, a liquid pure gold moment.
Wow, man. So many liquid gold and gold nuggets through this show. I can't wait to digest and replay it, as all my brothers and sisters out there in the collective as well. But always, thank you for turning up tonight. And just to piggyback on that, Mr. Jeff Fasano, on the back end of that abandonment, you say about betrayal, I'll probably add even one more, rejection. So when we start to really dig deep underneath some of these feelings and emotions that Jeff's talking about, we as men start to identify, label some of these emotions, and then just sit with it. Just sit with the emotions. Feel your way through. And the key word for me is trust. Trust yourself. Back yourself. Back your little family. Back who you are. Your inner child, the little boy, and never left. So are you going to turn up and put trust into your father? Are you going to put trust into nurturing mother and giving that unconditional love and space where you're able to freely express and give birth to some of those beautiful ideas, dreams, and manifestations that naturally come from the darkness and the birth of any womb of the feminine energy? So on that note, my brothers and sisters, thank you.
Woo!
Good one tonight across the board. Wow.
Before I pull you into this humble moment, I want to just take a moment here just to acknowledge the viewers and listeners. I'm going to invite you to do some extra self-care tonight. Maybe drink some extra water. Turn on some music that you enjoy, that makes you feel good. Be aware that this topic could be a trigger, may have been a trigger. For nothing else, not necessarily a bad trigger, but when that number of you are kind of going back and reflecting in this moment into your past, and with that, it kind of brings the sediment up to the top of the glass. It's been mixed tonight, and it's an opportunity for you to process and really use this conversation, this talk show, to come home to yourself and come to acceptance that it was what it was. Not because you were not worthy, not because you weren't lovable, but because perhaps your mom wasn't available, because she herself was in pain, suffering. And know that you are loved. You are loved. And the first place to start is with yourself. So be gentle, loving, and kind to yourself tonight and over the weekend. Take some time to reflect. Don't deflect, but reflect. Go in. And know this, that all 5 of us are available over the weekend. If you want to check in with any of us, I'm sure we will make time to say hi through Messenger and communicate. If you have something that's on your mind and you're unsure, we're here for you. Humble.
Yes, brother.
You got 2 minutes, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about abandonment and any nuggets you could share from your own experience of having perhaps navigated through that in your own life.
You know, when you first mentioned that, I was like, I don't know if I had abandonment issues. But then I kind of looked at it and I thought about it, that it didn't have to be per se the traditional or the typical thing that we may look at. You know, and I compare it to my kids. Like today we went fishing, right? I literally had a great deal closed yesterday, or it's closing yesterday. And I'm like, you know what? Today I'm taking the day off, literally. And didn't do any calls, didn't do anything, and went to take the kids fishing. Tomorrow we're going camping. So when I think of abandonment, I think of the time that I didn't have. Once again, I go back to my mom while she was working and doing the best she could. There's not many memories that I remember, as far as other than just her working and going to church every now and then and just, you know, running the streets with my friends. My dad, you know, his idea when I was a kid of doing something cool was going to I lived near Belmont Racetrack, so an aqueduct. So he would give me, you know, a couple of dollars. I'd be running around the whole racetrack all day, literally for hours as he's gambling. And I thought that was quality time. So in a sense, that's kind of, I feel that as abandonment, in a sense that that really wasn't the time that I needed. I needed memories. I needed things that made him step outside of, you know, those simple memories. So as far as my children, I try to create memories all the time so that they could say, hey, you know what, I remember going camping with my dad, or we went fishing today, or we, you know, went to Jamaica together. We did things that just really left them saying that, you know, dad showed up, as you like to say, dad showed up, and didn't abandon them, not so much even mentally, physically, emotionally, but even spiritually. So that's my nugget to drop.
Beautiful, beautiful. Humble, bringing it home tonight. Thank you for sharing your perspective, your truths tonight. And here are my closing words. Abandonment is something that children feel. Children experience it at all different levels, some more, some less, but a profound impact because we take that with us, because that inner child comes with us into adulthood. Unknowingly, our inner child is still alive within us. And so each time we get activated, as my friend Sue Gaskell says from New Zealand, or triggered, as we say in the United States, it's our inner child that's triggered into those same abandonment feelings and emotions. Abandonment is really about feeling that you're alone, that no one loves you, that someone left you emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually. That is a reality for children. It happens. But here's the game changer. Here's how you could change the ending for your own self. Understanding that adults don't get abandoned. We don't. It's our child within that has that feeling from the past that surfaces when someone leaves us or says, this relationship isn't working, I want out, we're not compatible. It brings us back to those younger years. But ultimately, adults are not abandoned. We're adults. And a game changer is that we can parent that beautiful little boy and girl within us and remind them that as long as I am alive, I will never abandon little JJ again like I did for probably 50 years of my life. It's my responsibility. It's my honor to parent that little boy inside today. Love him, nourish him, nurture him, have a play date with him, sleep with him, hold him, and honor him. Give him what he deserves. Give him that parent that he waited for most of his adult life to show up. It's me. It's you, Humble. It's you, Josh, Ev, Jeff, and all of our viewers and listeners. All we need is love, and we already have it. We just need to be willing to share it with ourselves. And with that, please share the show out.
Yes.
We need and love your support.
Please.
This has been a beautiful show. One more for the books, one more for the archives. Follow us on YouTube, on Facebook. Catch us on realtalkrealmenlive.com. And know this, it's not about the show. It's about the message. And with that, I love you guys. Have an awesome week. I'll see you at our meeting on Tuesday. You guys light me up. I appreciate you and I love you. And with that, have an awesome weekend. Do some self-care.
Let me say one thing before you go. Whoever shares this out to 10,000 people, I'm going to do a virtual romantic dinner date.
Whoa!
Right?
I'm gonna one up you, dude. Anybody who shares this out to 15,000 people, they can go out and hang out with all of us.
Yes.
And we'll also have your picture taken, guaranteed.
There you go.
All right, guys. Love you.
Love you guys.
Love you, too.
Love you guys.
Welcome
Love
back,
everybody.
Josh, Ritcher.
Thank you.